Hi guys, welcome to the Parrot Teacher. David here, joined by Chip and Fish, and today's video is going to be discussing easy and essential training techniques that every bird owner should know. And I'm saying bird owner because while I have parrots and most of my videos are focused on parrots, these techniques will apply to all birds and maybe even other animal species as well. They're really easy, really useful. I'm going to go through them, talk about them, and also show you some examples of them in action. Now, any training technique you do with an animal needs to use positive reinforcement. And positive reinforcement is basically adding something into the environment that's going to increase the likelihood of your success and seeing more of the behaviour you want. For example, with our parrots, that would be a favourite treat. It could be millet, it could be hemp seed, it could be a fruit if you've got a larger parrot. It doesn't matter as long as you know what that favourite treat is and you're using it. You don't want your parrots to be doing things because they feel forced to, you want them to do it because they want to. That's where positive reinforcement comes in. So knowing what their favourite treats are and using them every time you want them to do something will make your training so much easier. The first training technique I want to talk about is called targeting or target training, touch training, whatever you want to call it. There's loads of different names for it. It all comes to the same basic premise. And I've got my demo budgie here to help out. You may have seen in previous videos, I've got my target stick. Target training basically is you are getting your parrot to touch the end of this stick ever so lightly and then pairing it with a cue, for example, touch, and then rewarding for that afterwards with that positive reinforcement I just talked about. And you may think this seems really silly and it's just, why am I even doing this? But this establishes a clear line of communication between you and your parrot. You know what you want your parrot to do to get that treat. They know what they need to do to get that treat. And having that line of communication opens up so many windows to you, which I'll talk about later. It allows you to direct your parrot out of trouble. It allows you to get them to explore the cage. It allows you to redirect them from biting. It allows you to even bond with them. If they're scared of hands, you can use targeting to get to that first step. And I'll show you a little bit of targeting with Olive in a moment. Olive touch. Good girl. Olive touch. Good girl. Olive touch. Good girl. The next training technique I want to talk about is called contact training. You may have seen me describe it in one of my previous videos about petting and cuddling your bird, but I felt it was well worth covering in this one. Now, contact training is a form of negative reinforcement, and just because it has the word negative in it does not mean it's something horrible. All it means is you're taking something away from the environment to increase likelihood, just like with positive. So with contact training, all you're doing is, I didn't keep my demo budgie for this, but this is my bird, this is my hand, and then you bring your hand towards the bird and you're just waiting for that ever so slight sign of hesitation, a bit of fear, a bit of scare, which is sort of like the edge of their personal space, their fear bubble. You're waiting there, you're waiting for them to show some calm behaviour, maybe they're just starting to relax a little bit, and then they're maybe preening, and then you move your hand away. And you do this in small steps and you do it repeatedly, and bit by bit your parrot starts getting used to your hand being closer and closer, and maybe even to the point where you can actually touch them, which is very useful for all sorts of things, including bonding or husbandry. A very useful training technique, again I've probably covered before, is called desense training. Now desense is basically just getting your parrot used to different objects, sounds, sights and things. It helps to alleviate a bit of neophobia, which is the fear of new things, helps to build their confidence and makes them just a little bit less reactive to things. And with desense training, all you're doing is you're bringing things into the environment to get them used to them. It's as simple as that. Good girl. Something that's really important to mention, and I'm going to include it as a training technique in and of itself, is reinforcing for things you want more of. A lot of us sometimes forget to reinforce or assume that our parrots will do things. For example, I put my hand up to Fish here, he steps up because he's well used to it and he's used to getting reinforced to it. I will intermittently reinforce him for that, However, if your parrot's not used to that and you're expecting them to just step up and do what you want, and it's not a trained behaviour, it's not going to happen. You need to constantly reinforce the things you want to see more of, because it increases that likelihood. And that is through positive reinforcement, through treats. So you'll want to be constantly giving treats to get those behaviours going, and basically rewarding your parrot for the work they're putting in. Because for them, it's a trick, it's work. For us, it's just something we assume they can do. Now remember, we wouldn't go out and work for free, so why do we assume our birds are going to? If someone offered me absolutely nothing for doing lots and lots of work, I'd be like, no thank you. So don't assume the same for your bird. Make sure they get that reward for what they do. Nice boy. Nice boy. Good boy. Step up. Good boy. Fish. Step up. Good boy. Step up. Good boy. Step up. You both do it now. Redirection is a great technique and oh so useful to all of us parrot trainers and owners, whatever you want to call yourself, because there's so many different words, parrot parents, etc. But redirection is basically just redirecting your parrot from doing something you don't want. Say for example your parrot's biting you, they're being a bit cheeky, being a bit naughty, you use redirection to get them to do something you do want them to do. So that way you're not having to punish them. If you're punishing your parrot, it's not going to work. If you're redirecting them, you have a much higher likelihood of success to get them to do something. For example, say Fish was biting me on my neck right now, which is obviously not because he just doesn't want to. I could use targeting to redirect him away, and that allows me to redirect him in a positive way and reward him for doing something I want. You can also use trick training to help. Now, you can train some very simple tricks. I've got an example of spinning, which you can do with target training, very, very easy to learn, but you can also train wave and all sorts of other things that are very useful. And this can be very useful for breaking a cycle of biting or maybe even fear or aggressive behaviour. Again, if a conures misbehaving when they're out and about, they're really fixated on biting, you could potentially ask them for a spin. And that will hopefully break them out of that cycle and give them a chance to earn some positive reinforcement. Spin. Good girl. Spin. Good girl. Spin. Good girl. The last thing I want to cover in this video is step up and recall training. These are just essential and every parrot should know how to do them, but also should be taught how to do them properly and be given positive reinforcement. I have dedicated tutorials for them, so I'm not going to go too much into them now. However, what I wanted to mention, which is most important, is something called successive approximations. So you want your parrot to recall to you. You can't just assume they're going to fly straight to you. They may do if they're keen or they see that treat, but you may have to do it in small steps. And successive approximations is just a posh way of saying very small steps. So you can start off by just having them step up onto your hand. You can have them then hop a little bit, then fly a little bit further, then a little bit further. With stepping up, if you want an example for that, you could just have them put one foot onto your hand and then reward them for that, and then take it from there depending on how nervous they are. It's just making sure you break things down into small, easy steps, which makes things much easier for you and your parrot. There we go. There we go. Good boy. So guys, thank you very much for watching. I hope you found this video useful. I hope you enjoyed it. The boy's being very well behaved and calm on my shoulders, just preening and relaxing. If there's any questions or any suggestions, please feel free to comment. I'd love to hear your training stories and what you find essential and useful. But in the meantime, from me, Chip and Fish, take care, have a really good day.